Good morning. Welcome to Thomas College. This is part 2 of the learning response. In part 1, we ended by referring to the importance of community and that we can't do these complex tasks alone. Here's another random individual, a defective character called gluttony, with a symptom of instant gratification. It sounds awful. So gluttony gets played down a little bit. It becomes obsessive compulsive. That's nice. It sounds better. Then look at the upside. And it looks better. The virtue is moderation. The implication of moderation, we become the voice of the mediator, the peacemaker, the listener. 12-step programs practice abstinence. It's the same thing. They're just practicing the virtue. Personality defects and their coexisting virtues. The whole idea centers in the mind. The mind tends to just reject being guilty. Resistance to change is almost a natural reaction. Read the body language. It's your fault. I am not interested in listening. And you cannot teach me. And finally, you are wrong. In spite of all that, let's check out the pathway. It starts with the left brain, the logical, subjective side of your mind, the realist, that sees its own version of positive and negatives, flowing through both the intellectual and physical beings, to the zero field, the unified field of quantum physics, the smallest. Meditation momentarily allows a release. We cross over to the spiritual and emotional beings and go right brain, our fantasy side, taking only the positive, looking to accept the creative solution. We repeat the circle until we find acceptance and our path to a passionate life, our destiny. Then work becomes fun and long hours are meaningless. You're loving every minute of it. These solutions to life's problems are buried in human instincts. It's fundamental human needs. There are 4 instincts: sex to procreate, social, the power of community, that's family, tribe, it's your people, and security, food, clothing, and shelter. And the 4th instinct, the call of the soul, a complex gut feeling that says, this is the right thing to do. All 4 are life forces. This is life's pathway. It's got its ups and downs, and sometimes at a crisis point, here's a guy who's getting fired, and it triggers something. His life could go down or it could go back up. And also another crisis point is at the bottom of his life. He said, I'm not living like this anymore. Human instincts are triggered at high and low points. The terms and conditions of that life path. These trigger points trigger our instincts. Instincts are really just habits, and they will become habits, negative or positive. Whatever we're going to do about it, we're going to do something about it. So instincts become habits. They're familiar. When something good or bad happens, it will trigger a learned response. The learned response might be negative because that's what you've been doing all the time. And it can also be a higher, going to your higher self. And habits can become reality, good or bad. Knowledge is power. There's a pathway here that's a purpose-driven life. There is within yourself through these learned responses. And you can learn how to do this. Education is the answer. Knowledge is power. You can't do it alone. Education requires people. Clarity and knowledge, it's a weapon almost. You can find out what motivates you to change. And you can find out what your life passion is, your gift, your calling. And it'll never go away. What you love to do will never go away as long as you're breathing air. Consider the mechanics of the downward slide. It usually starts when a life-changing reality happens. A profound shock, a crisis, a death in the family, a financial disaster, an important relationship ends. As that downturn in your life starts, what exactly is going on? Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has charted this. You're dying inside. Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and maybe even physically. You're not dead, you're just a giving up, a quitting. It's denial up here. It's anger, it's bargaining, it's depression. And it is followed by acceptance. Acceptance can be positive or negative. Negative is accepting decline as your destiny. You can dwell in any one of these dyings for years, living life in denial, anger, wishful thinking, depression, and living life in a diminished existence. Go down the list. It may not apply to you, but you probably know someone who is living like this. Denial, anger, depression. And now the learned response begins. Bargaining, acceptance. And finally, returning to a useful life, empowerment. Knowledge is power. When you know how to correct the problem, then you have a choice. It's an awakening in a moment of clarity. I can't live like this anymore. That's the step 6 moment when you're entirely ready. And the great promise. Never have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. It's never. It's not sometimes. A quick look at motivation. It's the 8 winds that drive us. The spiritual winds are joy and suffering, positive and negative. Mind motivation, intellectual. You're giving somebody credit or you're blaming them. Emotional motivation, praise, ridicule, very emotional, very connected to people. And physical motivation, it can be health, it could be gain, it could be loss. And finally, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Spiritually is represented by the white horse. And the dark side of that is apathy, indifference. And the mind, the black horse is the representative of that, and the negative is the declining intellect. Emotion is the red horse. You're losing your reality around people. It's all people-oriented. And your physical world Steps 10, 11, and 12 is represented by the pale horse, health problems, for example. Part of you is dying in each one of these. And finally, some contact information. Give us a call or email, and we'll do what we can, information or detail. Thank you. Bye.